this sport years ago, would say from 2010 onwards. Been on other pods as well in the past, but I've been encouraged by, other people in the boxing space to start my own podcast because they like what I have to say, and so I'm gonna roll the dice and give it a go. I'll try to be as honest as I can with the views I give. I'm not gonna get it right all the time, but I'll try to be as honest as I can. And looking forward to all of you listening in and riding the journey with me. So, as I mentioned earlier, my love for the game really started in sort of the early 2010s. I remember watching before 2010. I remember watching. Excuse me. I remember watching Ricky Hatton versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. with his check left hook knockout. I think it was in round 10. I remember watching that with my father. Thinking what an amazing fighter Floyd is. And this is a time when Hatton was huge, absolutely huge. But I think it really started around the 2010 mark from watching David Hayes' knockout of Audley Harrison in the third round TKO. David Hay, credit to him, he's a great salesman. I remember some of the things he said, in the build up to their first fight, and although it wasn't, as David Hay said, gang rape, it certainly got bums on seats, and I guess that's sort of the benefit of a fighter being a great promoter and ultimately a great salesman, as David Hay was back in his active days. He knocked out Audley Harrison in a devastating manner, and then the following year David Hay goes up against Vladimir Klitschko, saying the same things of what he was going to do to him that he did to Audley Harrison. Only this time he failed to deliver, and David Hay lost conclusively, was out-jabbed, struggling to get past that jab. Was completely outboxed and ended up blaming his loss to a broken toe. And given the nature of that fight, I sort of fell out of love with boxing a little bit until 3 years later, when the whole Froch Groves saga began in the fall of 2013. That was an unbelievable fight. Carl Froch, known for his granite chin, gets put down by George Groves in the first round. I specifically remember his chin, Froch's chin, and Groves's right hand basically coming into a collision course with one another. And when Froch got back up, he was, as he often says about Amir Khan, Bambi legs, Bambi on ice. I didn't think he was going to recover in the next round, in round 2. I thought George was going to stop him in the next round. But Carl, to his credit, like Tyson Fury, managed to recover. Has very good powers of recovery. And that, along with his granite, I say granite chin, but more, I would say, good chin rather than a granite chin. Because it's not like he's not been knocked down before. He has. I believe Jermaine Taylor knocked him down as well. But I think his powers of recovery with his good chin and his warrior spirit got him through that first half of the fight, because he was being absolutely battered by George Groves from pillar to post. I do remember in that second round though, when Groves hit Froch with a nice sweet combination, and Carl just smiled at George. I was like, oh dear. George better not let Carl get back into this fight. And as I say, halfway mark, I had George Groves comfortably ahead. And I believe round 7 or round 8 happened. Froch landed a good shot. Groves was hurt, but the referee, I'll always feel, stopped that fight prematurely. As do most fight fans watching it. We didn't see a conclusive finish. But we certainly did see a conclusive finish the following year in Wembley Stadium with Carl Froch, who often makes no secret, about this. He tries, he brings it up at every opportunity he gets in every other interview about him absolutely flatlining George Groves in Wembley Stadium with an 8-round knockout. Remember Groves falling over on his own leg, and that was brutal, and that was the last punch Froch threw in his career. And what a way to bow out. Listen, he gives other fighters a lot of stick, so he too should be able to take criticism and stick from other fighters as well when they put it on him. But overall, what a phenomenal career Carl has had. 4-time world champion. A good chin rather than a granite chin, because he has been knocked down. Whereas Sal Alvarez, Gennady Golovkin have never touched the canvas, I believe, throughout the course of their careers. Canelo, I don't think Canelo has. I'm thinking, was there a moment right at the start of the career where I think he might have been knocked down, but it was a very, very flash, and I use that word strongly, it was a flash knockdown. If anything, I might be confusing with another fighter, but yeah, what a way for Carl to bow out. And then obviously you had 2015, which was a bit of a quiet year in boxing. But 2015, 2016, you saw the rise of Anthony Joshua. You also saw Gennady Golovkin coming to the UK and taking on Kell Brook, which was originally scheduled to be Chris Eubank Jr. But, we'll get to him later on another conversation. But Golovkin versus Brook in September of 2016 was a fantastic fight. While it lasted, I thought Brook did much better than most fight fans, including myself, expected. Kell Brook, he got off to a fast start, was outboxing Golovkin in the earlier rounds, landing good, as Kell would say, chocolate brownie right hands, left uppercuts, rocking Golovkin's chin right up in the air. I specifically remember after he rocked Golovkin's chin with the left uppercut, Kell Brook then followed it up with a right hand. Blood from Golovkin's nose went flying onto his right shoulder or left shoulder. But then Golovkin turned his head around like the Terminator, stuck his right golden glove up and said, "Come on then," and just, let's go. He signaled to Kell in a way as if to say, "Come on then, let's go." And then in the third and fourth round, Golovkin turned up the pressure and, in his own words, turned the contest into a street fight, as he says, because I think he knew full well that he was struggling with Kell's boxing and his speed, his welterweight speed, and so he turned it into a street fight and started to pin Brook against the ropes and go for Hail Mary big right hooks along the ropes. And then round 5, Golovkin just turned up the pressure even further and eventually stopped Brook, damaging his right orbital bone, I believe, right or left orbital bone in the third round. But that was the end of that. So it was fun while it lasted. And then we had 2017, which was one of the best years in boxing. And that's largely thanks to the rise of Matchroom, but more significantly Anthony Joshua. Yeah, Matchroom have had a really good run in the 2010s with their exclusive contract with Sky Sports, doing stadium shows with Anthony Joshua, Carl Froch, Kell Brook, Tony Bellew. He really, credit to Matchroom, they really put boxing on the map as far as the UK is concerned. And 2017, as I said earlier, was a fantastic year for the sport. Had great number of fights, from Bellew against David Haye, Joshua against Klitschko, which was broadcasted not just in the UK but worldwide, both on HBO and on Showtime. It was voted Fight of the Year by Ring Magazine and really put AJ on the map, and rocketed him to global superstardom. You had Spence against Brook, another good fight in Sheffield Stadium, I believe it was. Then you had Ward versus Kovalev, the rematch. Bit of controversy surrounding low blows towards the end from Andre Ward, but bottom line was Kovalev was viciously hurt from that right hand when Kovalev switched stance from southpaw back to orthodox, I believe, and he was rocked to his boots by a Ward right hand, and so ultimately the right man won in the end. And then obviously in September you had the famous showdown between Golovkin and Alvarez, Canelo Alvarez, the highly anticipated middleweight world championship fight, which ended in a draw. But as boxing fans know, that was no draw. That was no draw whatsoever. Golovkin won their first encounter fair and square. I believe I had it 116, 112 or 117, 111 for Golovkin. He was robbed that fight. Golovkin was robbed that fight. There's absolutely no question about it. How Adelaide Bird scored the contest 118, 110 for Canelo, I will never ever understand. The fact of the matter is, myself, boxing fans worldwide who love the sport just as much as I do, media, pundits, journalists, all had that fight a conclusive win for Triple G. And that really put a very sour taste in my mouth, as it did with a lot of boxing fans. Golovkin deserves at least one win against Canelo. Canelo should have 3 losses on his record now instead of 2. And then obviously the following year they had their famous rematch again back in September of 2018. And this was an even better fight than was the case the first time around, with Canelo defeating Golovkin by majority decision, and was rightfully so voted Fight of the Year by Ring Magazine. I completely agree with that. The rematch was even better than the first fight because Canelo Alvarez came to fight. And ultimately, because Canelo came to fight, it proved to be a much closer contest. I scored the bout 115, 114 for Canelo, but it was so close of a fight. It was that close of a fight that if you had it the other way to Golovkin, I've got no complaints whatsoever. I think any scorecard, given how close that contest was, so scores ranging from 115, 113 to Golovkin, to then the other way to Alvarez, 150, 113, which is 7 rounds to 5 to Alvarez, or a draw, I think are acceptable scorecards. So 115, 113 to either fight or a draw is an acceptable scorecard to me because it was that close of a fight. By the halfway point in their rematch, I thought Canelo Alvarez was going to run away with the fight in the back end, because I felt like he was getting to Golovkin head and body, but especially his body, just absolutely ripping Golovkin's body with vicious body shots and hooks upstairs. Specifically, remember one left hook in the earlier rounds that cut Golovkin's eye. And by the halfway stage, I thought the damage, the punishing shots landed by Canelo to Golovkin's head and body, but especially to his body, considering he was 36 years of age, Gennady Golovkin at the time, 36 years old. I thought Canelo was going to run away with it in the second half and the back end of the fight. But the way Golovkin came back, especially in the championship rounds, rounds 9 through 12, is nothing short of amazing, considering he was 36 years of age at the time, but still he managed to find the second wind, whereas I thought Alvarez would find the second wind, given that he was a younger, fresher man. I specifically remember his corner, Ed Reynoso, telling Canelo in the rematch, you're the younger man, Saul, you have to use that to your advantage. But yet it was Golovkin who got the second wind. And what he did in the championship rounds, so from round 9 to 12, was amazing, nothing short of phenomenal, really, that the comeback that Golovkin had in the fight. I specifically remember big straight right hand rock Canelo's chin in round 10, followed by two big right hooks by Golovkin in round 11, followed by a punch combination by Golovkin. And then in round 12, Golovkin lands a big left hook, followed by a lead right uppercut, rocks Canelo's chin sideways and backwards, and upwards rather, I should say, from the uppercut. But Canelo Alvarez, to his credit, showed one hell of a chin. One hell of a chin. One hell of a character. A big pair of cojones, as they would say in Spanish. Because a lot of boxing fans were wondering whether he could stand up to Golovkin's power. And he did. And then some more by firing back with his own power shots. I specifically remember Max Kellerman commentating for HBO saying, how is Canelo firing back and throwing power shots after Golovkin is landing bombs on his chin? Two incredible warriors, and I can't really argue with the judge's decision because I think it was that close of a fight. 115, 113 either way is acceptable to me, or a draw. There are many who felt Golovkin won, and I can certainly see how, especially in the manner that he came back in the championship rounds. But overall, a fantastic contest. Their rubber match, their trilogy, nowhere near lived up to the drama of the first two fights, which is not surprising considering Golovkin was 40 years of age in their third encounter. So he was well past his prime, he was well past his best, and hopefully the man stays retired, because I think he has left a legacy in the middleweight division, no question about it, with his 23 fight knockout streak. And then obviously from December 2018 you had the start of the Wilder Fury saga, with the first fight ending in a draw. That was no draw. Tyson Fury, like most observers watching, felt that he'd done more than enough to win the fight. I certainly thought he won that fight despite the 12th round resurrection. I felt Tyson Fury did more than enough to win their first encounter. How that's a draw, how that ended up in a draw, I'll never understand. And just like how Tyson Fury managed to get up like the Undertaker, people are still in disbelief about it to this day, to be honest. But Tyson Fury won that first fight, and I thought he was robbed, to be honest. the second fight was what it was, a one-sided demolition job. The third fight was the best fight of their saga, of their trilogy. The third fight was absolutely stunning while it lasted, especially for the first 6 rounds. A fight swinging one way to another, with first Wilder being knocked down, and we were like, oh, here we go again. Then Fury getting badly knocked down the following round. I still remember the effect of Wilder's punch causing a ripple down Fury's flabby sides, his fat on his sides. The power of Wilder's punch, the effect of that power causing that ripple down Tyson's belly on his side. Yeah, that just shows how hard Wilder hits, but also Tyson Fury's powers of recovery were also on display again, and he managed to get up, recover, and then from the 6th round onwards it just basically turned into a one-sided demolition job, ending with an 11th round knockout. Yeah, obviously those rematches occurred in the 20s, just like Spence Crawford occurred in the 20s as well. It occurred in 23, and we had the big showdown between Beterbiev and Bivol earlier this year, which I'll touch base with later on, because again, like I said, those are the fights covering the 20s, and the goal of this episode today is just to give you guys a little bit of an insight in terms of my induction into boxing and recalling what were the most memorable fights for me in the 2010s era. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Episode 1, or the intro episode of hopefully what is going to be a long journey with all boxing fans worldwide. If you enjoyed listening to me speak about boxing and recalling past fights, don't forget to like and subscribe the show, and yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.